Have you considered who or what is God? I finally had this exploration within myself last year when I was having a conversation with this lady I met at the library who would go on to try to evangelize me for several months. We were talking on the phone and I had sent her this essay I wrote about why I was no longer a Christian, and she really didn't take in anything that it said. So I was trying to still engage her in a conversation, a dialogue, a discussion, which are all words that mean the same thing. Like, I wanted to have some back and forth about the things that I was contemplating and have her engage in that discussion, but she really wasn't. I talked so much about my relationship with God and how I still rely on God and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the conversation, she said, well, if you would like to come to church or if you would like to have a relationship with God, I can help you with that. And I was just, really. But it led me to be more specific about what I'm saying when I talk about my relationship with God. What I realize is most people, religious or not, have an idea of God that is a derivative of whatever God is in their religious text. I'm in America, so most people probably their frame of reference is the God of the Bible, whose one of the names is Yahweh. So I typically say Yahweh when I'm talking specifically about the God of the Bible. When you recognize that you don't have to believe that that's what a God would be like if a God existed, anything is possible. Oh, by the way, I'm Brianna and I'm a life coach. I'm here to support you in your deconstruction and or your connection with God. My thoughts on this got really obscure at one point to where I was almost like, am I an atheist then? Because it's very easy for me to believe that God doesn't interact with us at all. God doesn't care about what we think and feel. Maybe God is even just a computer. This was really important to me because it helped me sort through some of the discussions I had been having, honestly, with myself, but then also in discussions or conversations like I mentioned before, because I'm not interested in a relationship with Yahweh. To me, Yahweh is based on a human. It's a human God. Now, I have done some study. My study is limited because it's just so much. I had to take a step back at a certain point, but my study has shown me that at one point in history, God was corporeal, which means God actually did have a physical body, and I don't know when that changed, but I have some ideas. Anyway, I think that people's idea, or their construct, to be honest, of God is typically human-based. It's based on what we would be like if we were gods. Now, the Bible does say, let us make man in our image, but I don't know that that means that we're, well, it can mean a lot of things, but I don't know that that means that the way we feel and experience life is the same way God would experience life. Personally, I don't think God cares if we acknowledge it or not, because what is our praise and worship to to an entity that is already totally complete? I also cannot identify, or it does not resonate with me, and the idea that we can hurt God's feelings or we can make God happy. I just feel like there would be no reason really for us to have an effect on God. Often when people say things about God that are like, at this point, it seems very obvious to me, are sort of their own projections of God. I think about if the person said the same thing but inserted Beyonce. I just love and have so much love for Beyonce. Beyonce doesn't want you to leave the church. Beyonce needs your praise. Like, it would be as obscure. It's the same to me. I feel like people are having these relationships with basically Beyonce, where Beyonce doesn't care how I feel about her today. Now, if I go and slander her online, or, you know, make some huge gesture to show my affection to her, I guess she would care because she would see it. But as far as me and my life day to day, I'm positive Beyonce doesn't care how I feel about her. And I'm not saying that God doesn't care in a sense that we don't matter, but in a sense that how can something infinitely infinite be affected by something finite and minuscule? I cannot conceptualize that. So that is not a part of my construct of God. I'm going to take a moment to find the definition of construct, because I find myself using that often. I think that the way people think about God and talk about God is so specific to their denomination, their church, their own experiences, their feelings about themselves. I would say my relationship with God became shame-based because my life was shame-based. And the thing is, that was very real to me. So I can't say, someone may say that I wasn't worshiping God, but like, how else was I supposed to connect to God or relate to God? Like, where was I supposed to get this other connection if not the way that it came organically to me? Okay, so the definition of construct is something constructed by the mind, such as a theoretical entity, a working hypothesis or concept. And the second definition is a product of ideology, history, or social circumstances. So I do think that construct is a really good term for it. I think that the way that we think about God is a construct. It's the way that our mind has fixed to conceptualize this force. I will be more personal and say, while I don't think that God needs me to give praise or worship, nor do I think God can be made sad or happy by me, I do think I think God is still available to me. And I also in some ways conceptualize God as the force of everything, the momentum, the goodness, the beauty, sort of an indefinable thing, which makes sense to me because how can we define God? And I feel like it serves me to think of God as a singular entity instead of just this vague notion, because I enjoy my own awareness of what I perceive to be God, which is one of the reasons I enjoy going to church. Sometimes, like some churches I really enjoy, because it's a place that I feel like I can experience that. I can just focus on that, because to me, it's the good. But I think it's just as valid if someone says they don't believe in God, because in my opinion, the way their brain works, which is everything that we experience is a product of our own brain. The way their brain works, they don't need that, or they don't have at this time a value for that. When I was on my exploration of who I thought God was, it was funny that I went down the rabbit hole of being like, okay, well, am I atheist? Is God a computer? Is God sentient at all? And then sort of conceptualizing God as the force, like I said, and then I had this thought of, well, it'd be nice if I could just go somewhere, like just experience that, just bask in that. And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's church. And that was one thing that helped me to recognize the value of church and religion when it's not toxic, right? But yeah, it's one way to experience something that might be one thing or might be another, but it's our brains do their best to process information in ways that we can use. And for a lot of people, it makes sense to conceptualize God as the Father. And I don't think there's any harm in that. I do think that there's harm in conceptualizing God as someone who makes your life worse, because I just don't believe that that's the case. So the purpose of this video is just to pose a question: who do you think God is? And recognize if your concept of God is based on religion. Because if you're deconstructing, you need to remove that limitation on the idea of God. I hope this was helpful. Please subscribe if you did find it helpful, and leave me a comment about who you think God is. Join me in the next video.